those who were really asking more serious questions about faith, had turned the corner from this being mostly about English to being mostly about faith now. And so the Good News Workbook was really helpful for us. Then in the early to mid 2000s, we redesigned all of the workbooks, the covers inside out, and we also produced the John Workbook. The John Workbook was really designed to help us work with more of our Muslim audience in the Muslim world, and then also in China. And the John Workbook has really served its purpose and been useful for a lot of people in our LST reading sessions. I know it's been useful to you as well. But that was the early to mid 2000s. So it's been a while since we had any new workbooks. There were some other workbooks that we produced along the way, but not a whole lot has happened since then. I know that we've all been ready. You've definitely been ready for more workbooks. And so I'm excited for today to reveal 14 brand new workbooks, redesigned workbooks. And that's a big number. And it was no small task. So the process that has gone into creating and producing these workbooks really started almost 3 years ago, 2.5 to almost 3 years ago. And since then, there have been well over 25 people, and some of you, I see some of you also have worked very specifically on these workbooks yourselves. So we've had editors, we've had writers, we've had people looking at photos, we've had focus groups. We've used all kinds of people for all kinds of tasks to get us to this point. And so I just want to say how much I appreciate all of you that have contributed to this, and the others that aren't here with us today. So, without a whole lot of further ado, I know we're all ready to see these workbooks and to see what we've got. So I'm going to turn this over to Leslie Altrock, and Leslie, you can take it from here.
Okay, fantastic. Well, we are super excited about being able to reveal these, and it's my privilege to be able to do that. And before I do that, I do want to say a huge shout out to Ben, Ben and Craig both have been the leads on creating and making sure this came to fruition. And so we're just so grateful to have them. And, the pandemic actually allowed us to have some time to be able to put together this many workbooks. And so a lot of negative things have happened with the pandemic, but there's also some positive things about stopping and being able to do some things that maybe we had on our plan, and now we get to do it. So Julie, if you could go ahead and share with us, this is if you've been watching social media, this is what Craig has been putting up, and there you are, ta-da! Yay! So as you look at this, what we see when we look at this is we hope workbooks that are visually pleasing, that you would want to put out maybe on your coffee table or leave out. We looked for being able to do more color. And so, so when you look over this, what you're going to see is you'll see some things that are familiar. We have Luke, we have Acts, our John and Good News are all workbooks that were there before, and now they've been redesigned and are ready. But then we have new things like Acts 2 and Questions and James and Good News. And Craig's going to talk about all the specifics of this in just a minute. But my privilege is just to talk to you about some of the things that you're going to see that are new. So one thing that is new about all these workbooks is not only do we have print versions, but for the first time, we are going to have professional looking digital versions of each of the workbooks. So Julie, if you don't mind moving over to our digital workbook. I'm still seeing the main picture, Julie.
Can you see it now?
I'm sorry, we're still just seeing the picture of the workbook, not the digital workbook. We did practice this before, but you know, anytime you start doing it. Perfect, thank you. So this is our digital workbook, and what it will look like. Every workbook is done in a flip book. So both the digital and the print copies are color throughout. One thing you're going to be able to see as you go through is there's going to be plenty of white space in order to make notes if you're doing it on the print version. And if you're doing it on digital, you'll be able to, I think you have the ability to circle and do things as well. It flips like a real book. And so on each page, you'll see there to the right is our, what are we calling it? We're calling it the LST guideline graphic. And what this is doing, it's pointing you to things that we feel are important for our methodology and philosophy of using these workbooks. And so you can see here at the front of the book, this graphic is explained. And then for each of the workbook page, there is a reminder to help you think about as you're reading. So all the workbooks, most of the workbooks have 11 to 15 lessons in them. And the John and the Good News have a few more because we did not break those up, but all the rest basically have between 11 and 15 workbooks. Both, like I said, are printed and you can see the colors. We have more pictures here. And when you look at a lesson, what you'll see is each lesson has 2 pages. And you can bookmark that so that you can always go back to the latest lesson that you're on if you're using the digital, or you can still use your sticky note if you're using the print version. Each lesson, the fonts are a little bit larger to help with just being able to read and be able to make notes for if the reader needs to translate a word or anything like that. We did change our new words to important words because as we, especially with LST Connect, a lot of our readers have a little bit higher language. And so the words themselves weren't new, but we want to talk about them because they're important. And then each lesson has 4 questions in the lesson for them to answer ahead of time, with the 4th question pointing back to the seed thought. So every lesson that we've done does have a seed thought, and this 4th lesson will point you back to it. But obviously, just these 4 questions are not everything that we want to share. And so you can look at the back of the appendix, and by popular demand, people have asked for this for a while. We've added 5 more questions to help. And so before you do your lesson, you're going to want to read these questions in the back and the questions in the front and decide what order you want to ask them. And then, of course, we want you to bring your experience to the discussion of the workbooks and come up with your own questions. We also, if you'll flip back 1 page, Julie, we have, for each lesson, we have a next step section. And what this is going to do is help you evaluate your experience with the reading of this workbook. You can ask these questions to your reader, and then you can decide what you will do next. So at the front of the workbook, it had the list of all the workbooks, and you can decide what will be the next workbook you're going to want to go through. So I think the appendix will be helpful to facilitate next steps, but also to expand your reading session. You are able to, once you purchase the digital link, you're able to download it, but when you download it, it does become a PDF. And so the features of bookmarking, things like that would no longer be available. We do hope in the future to be able to have these workbooks recorded so that the reader would be able to sit and listen to the lessons as well. So there's some features on the digital workbooks that we're going to be able to add as we continue to go. You're probably asking, well, what is the cost? And so the cost is not changing. It is not new. Each of the print workbooks will be $15 and each of the digital workbooks will be $12. So you'll be able to go on the landing page and order those. So I'm going to turn it over to Craig now, who's going to explain more about the specific workbooks. And then Julie will show us about the landing page and how to order.
Good. So that gives you a little look inside the workbook. Julie, we can hang out there and Luke on that one page that gives the overview of the series there. Hopefully you get a little sense there of what might be new or changed in these workbooks. They've all been refreshed and refurbished, even the ones that were existing. So one of the big changes overall is putting them into series. So these workbooks, 12 workbooks exist in 3 series, and then you've got the beginners workbooks aside of those 2. This is not to try to control what you're doing with your reader or anything like that. It's really meant, a lot of these editions and the overall structuring here is meant to try to make it easier for you and your reader to know, what should we do next, to reduce the decisions down so you don't have to wonder about that, but also to provide a sense of movement. That's one reason for some smaller workbooks, and it's also a reason to have series so that you and your reader can feel like, oh yeah, we finished that workbook, let's do the next one, or we finished that series, let's move on to the next series. So I'll briefly explain the series here. You've got the core series, which is Luke and Acts. So those who've been around a while, that's probably not surprising to you, but for people who are new, we just want to make it very clear that that's where you would start. So when somebody comes who's brand new to FriendSpeak or brand new to Connect or whatever, they don't have to guess. They know, okay, well, we're going to start in the core series and we're going to work through these 4 workbooks consecutively. So 1, 2, 3, 4, Luke 1 and 2, which is essentially the existing Luke workbook with a little bit of revision and then all the refreshment that Leslie talked about. And then Acts 1 and Acts 2. So Acts 2 is a new workbook that rounds out the book of Acts. And so everybody will start there and move through those 4 workbooks in series consecutively. Then that moves to the Discover series for deeper conversations, continuing conversations. These can be used in any order. So you've got some choices there. You recognize those who've been around, you might recognize Good News and John, existing workbooks that have been refreshed quite a bit. John is the longest workbook now. We've kept it together, so it is the longest workbook now. And then you've got a couple new ones, Questions, which are questions from the Gospels where Jesus or somebody else asks a question and then it's answered there in that same text. So because we ask so many questions in our sessions, these could provide some really interesting conversations. And then the book of James, which is just, so practical that it too should provide some really interesting conversations. And I might back out here just for a second and say, one of the driving questions behind all and every one of these workbooks and any particular text that's in them is just what would create interesting conversations. That's the question we kept coming back to was, well, would this produce meaningful and interesting conversations? So you've got those 4 workbooks in the Discover series. You can see that just those 2 series, that could be some years of work with a reader. But we didn't stop there. So then the 3rd series is an advanced series. This is advanced in the sense that we think the conversations will be more challenging to have, partially because of the texts that are chosen in the workbooks. A lot of this is coming from the Old Testament in the advanced series. The texts are often longer in these workbooks just because of where they're coming from, the narratives or the places in scripture that we're pulling from. So just so you're hearing from us, the advanced doesn't mean that we've got a different translation there or did something particularly with the questions to make it more advanced. It's just that we think by this point, these are the kind of texts that probably it would be better for somebody that's been using materials from LST for quite a while to jump into. So these would not be the best place to start. So these are all new workbooks. Origins, you're in the first part of Genesis with the creation narrative. Esther, you've got that great narrative. So it's a really fun workbook because at the end of every lesson, you're just wondering what's next. So you've got the whole narrative of Esther. Heroes are interesting people throughout Scripture, Old Testament and New Testament. And some of the really well-known narratives are summarized in there. And then reflections from the book of Psalms. And of course, you've got all the emotions and honesty that comes from the Psalms there. So those will be really fun conversations. I think, I mean, if you hold on and get to these books with a reader, I think you're going to love the conversations that you have there. And then of course the beginner series, you know, LST, this is not LST's bread and butter, and there's a lot of good material out there for working with beginners. But we know inevitably people that work with LST and FriendSpeak long enough, they wind up finding some people that can't quite do the conversation practice, and they personally have a desire to work with them. And so these are two completely brand new workbooks. Steve and Val McLean did a lot of the original work on these. They've worked with beginners all over the world, lots of different settings. And then Gail Nash up at Oklahoma Christian teaches English and works professionally with ESL. So she's had her eyes on these as well. So you've got beginner 1 and beginner 2 workbook there. The only real difference there is that beginner 1 uses text from New Testament and beginner 2 uses some text from the Old Testament. What's unique about the lessons there, the text provides a thread that runs through each of the lessons. So there's a small text in English to read together and practice writing. And then everything else all the exercises in that lesson pull from the text. So it's just a little thread that runs through each of the exercises. And they probably would work best in a small group setting or class setting, though they could be used one-to-one. So that gives everybody a really clear picture of how to move through the series. And the advanced series that doesn't have a sequence, so you can use those in any order. But we imagine working through the workbooks in order in the core series, then moving to Discover, moving to Advanced, and then using the beginner series as needed. All right, well, we'll jump over to Julie, and we've done some work on our how to get these materials to our storefront as well. So Julie's going to walk us through that just a little bit. Julie's muted. Anybody have the power there?
I am muted and it has stopped my share here. Let's see. I want to go back to here. If it will let me. Okay. Where's my other tab? Oh, Zoom is blocking the tab that I need to go to. Just a moment. Let me see if I can get this. Landing page. Here we go. Oh, that's Teams. Okay. Share screen. Okay, now everybody can hear me just fine? Yeah? Okay. Here we are. I know you've all purchased things online before, so this is kind of an odd little introduction to make to you, but since we're excited about our materials, if we had an actual brick and mortar store for you to walk past, we would have a beautiful front window display with all of these new workbooks out there so you could see them and, something to kind of razzle dazzle you and entice you to come into our store. So that's what this page is. Of course, when you from the home page click on resources and order materials. This will be our front window display for our store. And we have found that over the years, some people who are brand new to FriendSpeak, to Let's Start Talking, or who are just looking for good materials to use to help their international neighbors and friends, show up in our online store on our website first before going anywhere else. So here at the top, we've got some kind of background information for people who are brand new. There's a short minute-long introduction video and some information that tells about the background of our print materials and introduces our digital ones. Then in the middle here, so that you don't have to memorize anything about these new workbook titles and series, we've got the series and workbook descriptions right here for you. So you can just kind of scroll through, and whether you're in the core series with a reader or you finished it and you want to explore which title to go to next, that information is right here for you. Clicking on these blue workbook titles will take you directly to that item in the online store. Down here at the bottom, we've got information about how to get training or how to find your seed thoughts for your workbooks. Yeah, and those are available online for you. There's a place if you have any questions about anything, this will come to either Leslie or I, and we'll be able to answer your questions about what books we recommend for your particular reading situation or other questions you may have. Then if you are ready to explore the entire store, you can also click here, and this will take you to the front door of our online store. It's arranged a little bit differently than it has been in the past. What we've done is we have put categories of workbooks together for you. So here in this corner, you can find your series that you'd like to look at. Maybe you want to look at the Discover series and see all of them together. And oh, here they are, both the print versions and the digital versions available for you to click on and purchase. It could also be that maybe you're looking for a specific title, or maybe you are interested, you're just interested in in the digital versions, but you can't remember that they're called flip books. Well, that's okay. You can just search for online, and all the online material is right here, all 14 of them for you to look at and purchase. And then of course the online store works like all the other ones do. You just click on the item. Yeah. You have the option to look at larger pictures of the cover and the inside. You can click on the description. And if you're looking at the digital versions, you can click here and see a sample of what the flip book is like online, and it will let you flip through the pages and zoom in. Then you just add it to your cart, add and remove what you like, and check out as you usually would. You don't have to create your password or username. That's just a convenience for you. I think it will pull your address information in for you. I ship the orders on Tuesdays and Thursdays every week. If I notice that there are lots of orders coming in, then I go ahead and do them on the day that they come in. If you order more than 3 workbooks, they'll be shipped to you by priority mail. You'll get an email with a tracking number, and you should have it within 5 business days. So that gets it to you quickly. If you're ordering, of course, a digital workbook, then immediately you get an email with the download and password for it. So that's a great convenience for you. Let's see, show me I wanted to go back to my other tab and I can't see it. Is it? I think that's it. Okay, there we go. Oh, no, wrong screen. Oh, well, sorry about that. But I'm just excited that all of these are ready for you to order and to use with your readers. And if you have any questions about what we might recommend for a reader or your situation, go ahead, give us a call, give us an email, and you can order them online 24/7. Yeah. Okay, Ben, back to you. Let me see.
Okay, great, Julie. Thank you. And Craig and Leslie, Julie, you can unshare the screen if you want to. So we are right up against our 12:30 time. So like I said, we want to be respectful of your time. On the other hand, we anticipate that you will have questions, and you may have lots of questions. And so what we're going to do is we're going to end now, but we want to give everybody the chance to hang around afterwards. If you need to get off and go on with your day, that's great. But if you want to stick around, then what we can do is we can use the chat room. And if there are specific questions, we can unmute you and one person can ask. My guess is that many of you will have the same questions. And so we can certainly stick around and try to be helpful. The last thing I want to say before we end is even right now during the pandemic, there are a lot of reading sessions taking place. Not so much with LST International, but we anticipate hopefully before too long there being lots of opportunities again to travel and to do this work internationally. And that's one way our workbooks are used, and these new workbooks are going to be used. The second way these workbooks are being used is through FriendSpeak. And churches are continuing and in their FriendSpeak ministries. Many are starting to meet face-to-face again throughout the week. We're getting calls almost on a weekly basis now to go in and train new churches to get started with FriendSpeak. So FriendSpeak is really the second way that we're hoping these new workbooks will be used immediately and into the future. And then the third and maybe the most relevant way to use these workbooks right now is through LST Connect. And as I think most of you know, LST Connect is just simply the same LST approach, but you do it online. And we will match you with an international reader. We have a large waiting list of international readers, so we can certainly match you up with somebody, and you can go through the training and begin reading right away with somebody. And another great opportunity to use the digital flipbooks is through LST Connect. Okay, so thank you all for coming. Thank you for being a part of this. We appreciate you. We love you. Continue in your really good work. Stick around with us and ask some questions. But if you need to leave, we certainly understand that. Okay. So God bless all of you. Thank you for joining us today.
I see several questions that have been posted. Should we run through those briefly? Like somebody asked if all this was up and running already, and it is. You might have to refresh your browser or close your browser and come back in, but everything we showed you is up and running. I think somebody had also asked about workbooks for readers, like if we buy a digital workbook, can we share it with our readers, and or does the reader have to download it separately? Well, the digital workbooks are such that the reader and the worker can both buy their own. If that becomes a financial matter, that's something different, but it's set so that the worker and the reader would get their own workbooks. If your reader can't afford to do that, then talk to us and we'll try to figure out a way for them to get the workbook. Okay, it's not really set to be shareable, but they can get their own.
Yeah, international purchasing will work for digital items because they don't require shipping.
And somebody also, Julie, had asked about different monetary units. I mean, the website's set up to accept international purchases. So, but it requires a credit card. So that will be another thing we may learn about. If a reader doesn't have a credit card, then we'll have to figure out another way to get the workbook to them, but we'll figure it out. There was a couple others. Gareth, we do want to come to New England. Yes, we're going to get there. We're going to get there. Somebody asked if we could order print books now. Yeah,
Yes.
everything's available immediately. All the printed workbooks are in the office there with Julie and ready to go.
Ready to go.
Terry had asked if this was being recorded and if he could make the recording available to others. So yes, we'll get that link back out. Once the video is done processing, we'll get the link out to everybody.
Someone's asking Craig the main differences between Luke 1 and Luke 2 and the old version of Luke.
Almost everything is there. I think we had to take 1 or 2 lessons out to make it work. So I don't think there's anything that was added that I can remember. Essentially, it's the same workbook divided into 2 and then all refreshed.
Hey, Craig, somebody asked about whether they would need to buy new workbooks or if they can continue using the old workbooks.
Yeah. Yeah, no, keep using what you have for sure. Just at some point, if you use an old one and your reader has a new one or something like that, but for now, keep using what you're using. And
Yeah.
When you're ready for a new one, come grab a new one.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, were we going to give out the password to the seed thoughts to all of our insiders here today, Craig?
Yeah, it's set as SEED, S-E-E-D.
All small letters.
So that's not a secret. I mean, it's not a super friendly document for readers. So,
Yeah.
You know,
That's why we didn't include it with the item in the online store, since readers will now be purchasing.
So another question is, are the readers workbook the same as the workers?
Yes.
And then there's several questions. One is, can a volunteer reuse their digital copy for each student?
right. Yeah, it's yours. So.
Mm-hmm. We were also asked, do you have a bundle price if you want to get all the new workbooks?
Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah.
I don't think we've answered it yet.
We haven't thought of that far ahead yet.
And then the other question I see, will workbooks be supplied to international teams to take with them?
Yeah, I think so. That hasn't changed. I mean, we have a pretty big inventory of now what we would call our older workbooks. So we may choose to use those for certain events like that, certain programming like that. So
it may be that some mission sites will want to use what they've got on hand of the current version, the older version.
yeah,
And
sure.
then another question, are we able to review the material online before purchasing?
Yeah. There's a preview page showing what the lessons look like in the item description. If you click that kind of shows you one lesson. And certainly if you want to go through and look at the seed thoughts, that would kind of give you an idea and the scripture passage for each lesson in the workbook.
Cheryl had an interesting question, ordering multiple digital workbooks at a time for our congregation. Yeah, I mean, there may be other ways to do that, but they can be just purchased like every other product, and I mean, essentially the digital workbooks exist as one, like Luke 1 exists as one digital Luke 1 that we're all accessing on the same site. So you can, if you want to buy it for 12 people, buy 12 of them, and then they'll have access to it. You can give them the password and the.
Yeah, we haven't worked up a group licensing plan yet for the online stuff since they're so new.
Sarah, I see your question. Do churches that pay an annual fee or a FriendSpeak subscription fee have access to the new books? So the answer to this question is, and we're changing, this is a little bit of a change. The subscription fee for FriendSpeak churches will cover training, and we're offering many more training options, including online now. We offer bi-weekly basic training that we can plug our members into, and we're going to offer 3 or 4 additional types of advanced training now for our FriendSpeak churches as well. So we're really trying to beef up our training. The FriendSpeak workbooks will not be included in the annual FriendSpeak subscription fee. So those workbooks for FriendSpeak churches will need to be purchased either by the church or by the individual members, or possibly by the readers and the workers. We've got a lot of options there, so that's something we can certainly talk about. But to answer the question, no, the workbooks are not included, unlimited workbooks in the FriendSpeak subscription, annual subscription.
Yeah, yes to Mary, and about you can keep doing what you've been doing if that's working for you. So we think at some point your reader might like their own workbook, but nobody's going to look over your shoulder if you're screen sharing. We just think at some point they may like it to have their own.
The other question was, is Luke 1 and 2 equivalent to what the older Luke workbook is? And the answer would be yes.
Yeah, good. Training for the beginning workbooks. No, I mean, we're eager for people to use them and give us feedback. They're not created with the intention that they would need. I mean, they're really for people like me that don't have any background in ESL or working with beginners. So the intention is that they would be able to be used by most of us without special training. But let's try them out and see and make them even better.
Craig, another question. Do we use our current access code for online downloads with these new materials?
I think that must be for some PDFs that we had loaded up as a temporary fix. So
Yeah.
I think that will probably go away because we want to direct people to these better digital versions.
Danny's question says, so US readers pay for workbooks, but international readers will be given workbooks. So really the cost of the workbooks is included in fundraising for international projects. So that's how those workbooks are covered. Somebody's still paying for those. And for FriendSpeak churches and for those that are just using LST materials for various other means throughout the United States, yes, individuals will be paying for workbooks, or churches will be paying for workbooks.
There's a question about, is there an online list of advanced training opportunities? And if you go to our website and look under events, you're able to see everything that's being offered each month online. And once a month, we are offering the advanced training.
The topics of those over the next 3 months haven't quite been settled. So you can see the date though right now. We just don't have the topics. We'll get those in the next week or so.
Mary, I think you saw that Julie answered your question. So each workbook is $15. Yes, for Luke 1 and yes for Luke 2. It just made a lot of sense for us after doing our evaluations. With our very first workbook being 31 lessons long, it just made a lot of sense to have shorter workbooks, 11 to 15 lessons, so that people didn't feel like they were having to commit to nearly a year with a reader. And that's one of the reasons that we divided Luke into 1 and 2 and Acts into 1 and 2. It gives us some natural break points, and I think our workers and our readers appreciate that. Do past workers have to buy personal workbooks? So this is from Danny. Danny, if you already have workbooks that you're using, you can certainly continue to use those. There's no reason to replace what you're using now. When you want to purchase a new workbook, maybe something you haven't used before, or you're going through and you've run out of materials, then that's when you would purchase something new. But like we said earlier, nobody needs to feel like they have to stop using their older workbooks.
If your
If you've
training
got
is-
that, you're paid for it.
If your training is part of an LST international team, then the fundraising that you do covers your training materials. So it would be provided for you as part of that.
Marion, I think your question about using the current Acts workbook and then getting Acts 2 would be fine. You should be fine. Just finish off your current Acts workbook, and then you could probably dive into Acts 2.
Mhm. Okay. Well, you're going to have more questions, so keep them coming. I don't think we're going to stay on all day. We'll stay on for a few more minutes, but you know how to reach us. You can reach us through the website. You can reach us through email, lst@lst.org. You can reach us on the phone. If you want to have a longer conversation about any of these specifics, we're certainly open to that. And so the other thing that we would just really encourage you to do is help us spread the word about the new workbooks. The goal of the workbooks is that they are used by people who want to get the gospel message of Jesus out to more people. And they can be used in a lot of different ways by a lot of different people. And we'd love for that to happen. So help us spread the word. You're going to see posts on social media. You're going to see emails. Please forward these on, like the posts. Just help us get the word out to as many people as possible. And we'll all be praying that these workbooks are a real benefit to all of you and all of the many hundreds and thousands of people that are reading all over the world. Leslie, Craig, Julie, Donna, is there anything else you want to add before we sign off for the day?
We had an extra question about the one of the free downloads that we have on our website that are the reader information pages. Those are still available for a free download to use for your FriendSpeak or for your LST Connect reader if you want. When you get to that online store, the catalog, the category that they're in is called free downloads. You can just pick that from the drop list at the left, and that will show you all the free downloads there. The FriendSpeak signs, the reader information page, the contact cards are all still there for you.
Yeah, we appreciate all of you.
Yes.
Pleasure to work with you.
Great to see everybody.